You ever draft a player in fantasy and then wish you had drafted somebody else? Yeah, me too. Here are 5 players I think you're going to regret drafting and 5 players I think you should draft instead. We're going to give you same or similar production later on in your fantasy drafts. Let's start with wide receiver Mike Evans, who's typically being drafted around 7, and I'm going to recommend you don't draft Mike Evans and you instead take Nico Collins, usually 5 rounds later than Mike Evans. Nico Collins showed great progress from year 1 to year 2 as a true X receiver, which is the role Mike Evans plays in that Buccaneers offense. Also, Nico Collins now entering year 3 towards the prime of his career, whereas Mike Evans is in the, twilight of his career, on his way out and likely his way past his prime. Also, when we look at these 2 wide receivers, you gotta give the edge to Nico Collins when it comes to quarterback play. Sure, there's some question marks about how well CJ Stroud can play at the NFL level, but we know how bad Baker Mayfield is, and I don't think Kyle Trask is any better. I have not heard one positive thing about Kyle Trask since he's been in the league. Also, when you look at Nico Collins, he doesn't really have a lot of competition for targets. Yes, they have John Mechie, who basically is a rookie because he missed all of last season. They drafted Tank Dell, who's kind of like a poor man's Kadarius Toney gadget type of player. They signed Dalton Schultz in free agency. He's a tight end. They signed Robert Woods, who's beyond dust at this point. Nico Collins should be the number 1 target in this offense. So if you're looking for a high upside, maybe not super consistent wide receiver, it's easy to look at Mike Evans and see the name and think I need to take him. But I'm saying just wait 5 rounds, get Nico Collins later. I don't think there will be a big difference between these 2 guys. Let's stick to wide receiver. And would you rather have 7th round Gabe Davis, who was a complete bust last year, or 12th round Alec Pierce, who was also a bust last year, but as a rookie? I'm taking Alec Pierce every time. These are both vertical, take the top off the defense type of wide receivers, but Alec Pierce is just better than Gabe Davis. He ranked higher than him against man, zone, and press coverage last year, and he was a rookie. Gabe Davis was in his 3rd year. We likely know what Gabe Davis is at this point. He's just a not very good wide receiver who can every now and then pop off with a home run. That's probably what Alec Pierce is going to be this year, because he's not a guy who's going to get force-fed targets, especially in this offense, but he's a great vertical wide receiver, and now he actually has a QB who can throw the ball down the field and take advantage of his skill set. So if we're talking about 2 wide receivers who most weeks are going to give you very little and maybe 3 or 4 times a season are going to pop off for big games, why use a 7th round pick on that guy when you can just use a 12th round pick on basically the same guy? And I'll also say about Alec Pierce, he can actually do some other things like run slants, which could help his floor a bit more than Gabe Davis. So he may actually have more usable weeks than Gabe Davis, as well as having as many boom weeks. All right, now everybody's favorite tight end this year, TJ Hawkinson. Why would you use a 4th round draft pick on TJ Hawkinson when you could just get a tight end like Pat Freiermuth in the 9th round? Believe it or not, Pat Freiermuth actually had more top 10 finishes at tight end than TJ Hawkinson last year, despite playing 2 less games. And despite missing 2 games, he was still 5th in targets among tight ends and 10th in routes run. And all the Steelers really did was draft a blocking tight end, which is only a good thing for Pat Freiermuth because it means now he's going to run even more routes. And if you take out Hawkinson's 2 huge games, which by the way, one was with Detroit, so it wasn't like he was only good with Minnesota, he averaged less than 10 PPR points per game last year. Again, I really think you're going to get similar production from Pat Freiermuth in the 9th round as you are from TJ Hawkinson in the 4th round. And when you draft TJ Hawkinson in the 4th round, you're passing on very good running backs and wide receivers to get just an okay tight end. This makes no sense to me. Just wait, take Freiermuth later. Drafting tight end late is a strategy that almost always wins every year in fantasy. All right, now I'm going to advise that instead of drafting Derrick Henry in the 3rd round, you just wait and draft James Conner in the 8th round. The secret nobody wants to admit is that Derrick Henry has actually been really bad the last 2 years. And I know you play fantasy, you only look at fantasy numbers and you said, no, he's been great. Yeah, he's been great in fantasy, but he's been living off of touchdowns. 4.4, 4.3 yards per carry the last 2 years after averaging 4.9 or more yards per carry in each of the previous 3 years. James Conner, another guy, not very efficient, also has been living off touchdowns. Derrick Henry has 23 touchdowns in his last 24 games, and James Conner has 26 in his last 28 games. So these guys are both very touchdown dependent guys. They're both also likely in what will be bottom 5 offenses this year, and they're just volume touchdown dependent guys. But the one benefit James Conner has over Derrick Henry is he actually catches passes. And when we look at both of these running backs, even though they're both up there in age, James Conner has yet to reach the 1,200 touch mark, which is the point when running backs begin to decline. Derrick Henry, on the other hand, is coming very close to the 2,000 touch mark, which is when running backs completely disappear off the face of the earth. So instead of spending a 3rd round draft pick on a high volume running back who needs a ton of touchdowns, just use your 8th round pick on a high volume running back who probably needs a ton of touchdowns. All right, and finally, I'm going to poo-poo on everybody's favorite young breakout wide receiver, and I'm going to say don't draft Jerry Jeudy in the 3rd round. Just wait 3 rounds later and draft Jordan Addison. I know everybody loves Jerry Jeudy, and they're waiting for this breakout that's probably never going to happen because the reality is Jerry Jeudy is bad. He's not this elite route runner that everybody thinks he is. He's actually a very poor route runner. On the other hand, Jordan Addison is a very good route runner. But both of these guys are the type of players who need to be their team's number 2 wide receiver. Neither of these guys are an alpha number 1 wide receiver. Unfortunately for Jerry Jeudy, he's probably going to have to be the number 1 wide receiver in an offense led by Russell Wilson that will probably lean more on the running game than the passing game. Meanwhile, Jordan Addison gets to be the number 2 wide receiver behind the best wide receiver in football in one of the pass heaviest offenses in the entire NFL. Addison is likely going to be what everybody has wanted Jeudy to be for years. This kind of slot flanker player who can excel and run good routes. Jerry Jeudy just isn't that guy. He's not in a good situation. Don't draft Jerry Jeudy in the 4th. Wait till the 7th round. Get Jordan Addison. You will be glad you did. All right, now you know who to avoid and who to draft, but what wide receivers can you actually get in every single one of your fantasy drafts? Find out right here.